From Super League to Olympic distance to age group world records to Kona. Go longer with the right fuel at the right time with SFuels.
This is a phenomenal bike ride, and I can tell you he's so casual. This is his first time he's ever biked the full 112 miles here in Hawaii. He's never been up to the turn in Harvey. He's certainly been up there today. Doesn't he look...
We're gonna swim, bike and run in the Kona sun. We're gonna swim, bike and run in the Kona sun. Cause it's breakfast with Bob.
And Poncho Man, everybody! Welcome to our 11th year of Breakfast with Bob from beautiful Huggos on the Rocks. My name is Bob Babbitt. We're brought to you by Master Spas, SFuels Go Longer, HOKA Let's Fly, Form Smart Swim Goggles, Quintanaroo, Zoot, the original triathlon brand, and of course, our Challenged Athletes Foundation, a gentleman who has done so well on this island. He's been 3rd, 5th, 6th, 8th, 4th, and in 2019, 2nd at the Ironman World Championship. Give it up for the great Timothy O'Donnell. T.O., how you doing, bud?
Good, Bob. I'm just happy to be here. Look where we're at.
I know,
this is amazing.
Right? So we were at Challenge Miami, or Clash Miami, a couple years ago, and we're at the post party at Bill Christie's motorhome, and John Gefford, my producer, and I are standing there, and then you're like leaning on the golf cart going, man, I can't catch my breath. I just don't feel right. And immediately, Bill sends you to the hospital. And what happened?
Yeah, so that was March of 2021, Bob, in Miami. And I actually had a heart attack on the bike. I think most people probably know the story. Had a massive block in my LAD.
It's a Widowmaker.
And yeah, it happened on the bike. I finished the race. Not a good idea. Do not recommend that. Please, if you're having a heart attack, do not finish the race. Go to the hospital. But yeah, very fortunate to be here, and not just racing, but just to be here for the family. Finn was 8. Our youngest.
He's just been born,
was
right?
8 weeks old at the
Yes.
time. So it was put everything into perspective, and that's why, when I say I'm just happy to be here, it's not racing, but just to be here with all you and my family, and the fact that we're in an amazing place in the world just makes it a little bit better, doesn't it?
Yes. It really changes you when you have that. We see it with our athletes from Challenged Athletes Foundation when, something happens traumatic in their life. It's like everything else is gravy. I'm still alive.
Yeah.
And you're able to spend time with your kids. And when you're racing, like you just did Santa Cruz, get second up there?
Second, yeah.
Second place in Santa Cruz. You're like, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I really notice it when I see the kids on the course. Before all that, when I would see Izzy on the course, I'd usually just have my laser focus eyes and just kind of run by. Not now. I take the time to smile, wave, blow some kisses, and then still get back to work. But it's pretty special to have him out and be part of the journey with us. So I'm gonna make sure I soak that in a little bit too.
When I think of this race and I think of you, I always think of a guy who wasn't afraid to go for it. Because I remember at the turnaround in Hawaii, all of a sudden, I'm in the lead. And you're going, okay, I'm in the lead. I'm going to go with this. Rather than a lot of people are intimidated by the moment, the chopper overhead. This is the Mecca. I shouldn't be leading. But you knew you should be leading.
Yeah, it took me a little while to get there, Bob. This is my 10th appearance here.
Right.
My first one was in 2011, and that was 2015, my first podium. And I had always gotten dropped on the climb up to Hawaii.
Right.
And in 2015, I said, nope, not going to happen. I'm not getting dropped this time. And I turned around and looked, and I was by myself. I'd kind of ridden away. So at that point, I had to let it soak in. I'm like, okay, well, now we're in front. Let's, you deserve to be here. You put in the work. You know what you're doing. So let's take charge of the race and keep pushing the pace.
So for the last number of years, been training with Julie Dibbens' group. And what does Julie bring to the table?
I absolutely love working with Julie. She's been a close friend of both me and Rennie for years. And actually, that first year, 2011, I was here. I ended up DNFing. I got sick, and she rode by me on the bike. I was just covered in vomit, and she kind of looked over. She's got a great sense of humor.
She's like, "You need a new coach."
Yeah. she looked over to make fun of me, and then she saw me. She's like, "Oh, sorry, T.O."
But you guys, every year, I love following the camp that you guys do in Kansas. Yep. And who would have thought that getting ready for Ironman, people are going to go to Kansas? When you first heard we're going to go do a camp in Kansas, what were you thinking?
Yeah, we started that in 2018. I had always done my Kona prep in Boulder, just because that's what Rennie did, and I finally, once again, kind of took charge of my career and said, no, I need to go down to sea level. I need to work on my top end and need to be able to recover a little bit from these sessions. So we wanted to find another place, and Gwen Jurgensen's husband, Pat Lemieux, actually recommended it to us.
Really?
And it's perfect. It's quiet, really nice, great people. You get some heat and humidity on some days, rolling terrain, lots of wind, and it's worked out well ever since.
So 2019, your best race here, second place.
Yep.
And then the world shuts down, right? That's like you had your best race, Jan Frodeno's up the road, but you're on the podium, not just on the podium, silver medal. How special was that for you after, so many times at this event?
I was 39 at that time, and to break 8 hours, and which has always been a kind of a goal of mine that I hadn't talked about, but a lot of my passcodes were like Ironman 759. I've changed them now. No one tried to hack my accounts. But so for me, that was something I always want to do. Sort of break 8 hours, especially coming off a broken foot. I think 7 weeks before the race. And 2019, I came in from a place of gratitude because weeks prior, I didn't think I was going to be able to get to the start line. I just took that to a whole new level with the heart attack. So I'll try not to elevate it again for next year.
No. But but when you come in, and I think when we chatted, you had no idea how far you'd be able to run, if you'd be able to run. Should I put my sandals in the transition bag?
Right. Get the Mai Tais ready.
Exactly. Swim, bike, done. It might be my race today, right? That might be it. But instead, you get off the bike, and could you tell early on, okay, it's feeling okay?
Actually, the first step, right when I dismounted my bike, Bob, and you start running, those first 2 steps, I knew. I'm like, okay, my legs feel good.
Really?
Yeah. And I think we all maybe overtrained a little bit, and then I was able to really focus on my riding too, to become a better rider. So I didn't override that year, which I hadn't done in previous years. So I think that was important as well. But it's still late in the race. I didn't know, and I actually hit a pothole in the energy lab with my broken foot, and I was like,
but okay.
And then it was fine. I'm like, okay, keep going.
So the energy lab is always the truth light, right? You're going in, Jan's coming out, and then when you make the turn, you're going to see where the other guys are.
Yep.
Right? And of course, you want to
puff up the chest. Yep.
You want to look
Smile,
great.
Yeah.
Don't even think about coming and getting me.
You can't catch this.
Yeah. So, actually, funny story. Thomas Hellriegel years ago was leading, and he's trying to come out of the energy lab looking really strong, and Luc van Lierde is coming down in the energy lab and running a little faster, right? And Thomas goes, I tried to look good, but then Luc took one look at me and stopped to go take a pee, figuring, I got that guy. He's got nothing. It didn't work very well. And then he came and passed me. So you puff up. You got who is coming down?
We had Sebastian was right behind me, and then I didn't realize Ben Hoffman was flying.
Yes.
Yeah. Luckily, I didn't even realize because he still hadn't closed the gap at that point. So I saw him moving well, but I didn't even realize he was going to be running up to 4th that day.
Yeah, but were you worried about Sebi?
Oh, you always got to be worried about Sebi. I mean, the guy's he's tough as nails, and he's won here before.
Right.
And he actually put 15 seconds into me a little bit later. And I saw Julie, and I'm like, did he really put 15 seconds into me? And she's like, yep. I'm like, So I started running faster, but it was the first time I'd ever had another gear in the last 6-8K of the race, which was pretty awesome too.
And do you learn from that? Okay, I remember Karen Smyers used to say it's better to be 10% undertrained than 1% overtrained.
Yep.
Did you learn from that okay, moving forward, if I'm feeling like maybe I don't do that workout, then I don't do that workout?
Absolutely. And I think as you get older and further along in your career, you have to be smarter about that as well.
Right.
I just don't need the training that some of the younger guys need.
Right.
And I've loved working with Julie and our cycling coach, Matt Bottrell. And I noticed it in Kansas because Matt Hansen's out there with me, and we're doing different stuff. And I'm like, okay, our coaches, they know what they're doing.
So how ready is Matt for this race?
Matt is,
he's
so fit.
Yeah.
I see him train every day. I'm like, how do I, this guy, he's amazing. So he just needs to put it together on the island.
And he really, he hasn't had that race.
Right.
On
He's had it at so many other events, but
it's like, you never know when that's going to happen. Who would have thought before that race that you're going to be second place in 19? You just changed everything.
You just don't know, yeah.
as an athlete, we feel like we're eating right, we're doing all that stuff, we're a little bulletproof.
Yep.
What did you ignore signs? What do you think was it? Were there issues that you looked past when you look back at? Were there warning signs at all?
Yeah, I had actually gone in for screening at the end of 2020.
Yeah.
I had done stress tests, like the treadmill stress tests, and I'd done echocardiograms because to rewind a little bit, we got back from Australia like beginning of February 2020, and the next week, Rennie and I, or a couple days later, we both got really sick. And this was before anybody really knew what COVID was. And
right.
Then a couple of weeks later, I started getting like flutters and palpitations, trouble breathing. So in my mind, there could be some correlation to all this. And then there's the anxiety about what's happening in the world, right? And that can cause similar feelings.
Yes.
So I did go in and we ran some tests, but
they didn't show anything.
Yeah, everything looked good, and considering my fitness and all that. Now, one thing I didn't realize, I didn't really dig into my family history, and that's important for us all to do because if when you look back, my dad had this ancestry thing done, and I look back and almost like all of his relatives died of like cardiovascular disease. I'm like, I got to know this
stuff I should have known before.
Yeah, right. But so if you can do, there's genetic testing you can do to find that out, and then there's I did a new scan called the Clearly scan, which is it's cutting edge. You can actually see soft plaque build up without having to go into your heart, which previously it was kind of the only way to do it. So non-invasive, ton of information. So we're in a position now that we can really start to get ahead of this. And the silver lining for me of all this, obviously I'm glad to be here, but the outreach I've had and the ability I've had to help educate others so they can avoid what's happened to me or just have that connection with people that have similar stories, it's been very, very powerful these past 18 months.
It's interesting because at the end of the day, you're sort of the second generation, the Dave Scotts and Mark Allens, that's first generation, sort of guinea pigs. Right. We don't know what the sport does to us long term. I know Dave Scotts had a couple of ablations. Greg Welch ended up finishing 11th here in 1999 while having a heart attack. His heart rate went up over 300 throughout that day and had no idea, had to retire from the sport. So it's important for all of us to take a look at what we're doing, heat, and what the workouts we're doing will do to us long term, especially with our heart.
Right, because you're not just stressing your legs and your muscles. You're stressing your heart as well when we're doing all this. So you definitely want to keep that in check. And I've seen a lot of cardiologists. I've seen some of the best sports cardiologists around, and the benefits of training and fitness outweigh the risks of some sort of associated heart disease. You're much better to be fit, but there's a small percentage where bad stuff happens, I guess.
Exactly. And what are your goals? Just to sort of enjoy, wave to family, have a good time out there?
I want to be competitive, Bob, and my fitness, I've had some great sessions. The build-up, Julie and I laughed because we feel like we got there, but it was like the last minute.
Yeah.
So, we never waited that long. But, for me, it's just believing and trusting in who I am as an athlete and that I can do this. What's happened to me doesn't mean I can't perform right now.
Exactly.
The training I've done says I can. So I want to get out there. I want to be in the front of the race, and I want to put the numbers together, and I think I'll have a performance that'll, that can do me proud.
Love it. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Timothy O'Donnell.
We're gonna swim, bike, and run in the corner sun. We're gonna swim, bike, and run in the corner sun. Look at it. And breakfast with Bob.
Poncho Man, everybody.
And Bada Kim.